Good evening, everyone. My name is Penny Wyatt. I'm the Director of Family Programs here at Tulane University. We're so grateful that you've joined us tonight for this webinar on fraternities and sororities. What do you as family members need to know? And we are very happy that you're interested in this topic. We know that this is a big part of many students' lives at Tulane, and so we want you to feel comfortable and prepared and informed about the process that your student will go through and about the community that they're interested in joining. And so I'm very pleased to introduce you to my colleague, Nelda Bailey, who is the Director of Fraternity and Sorority Programs here at Tulane. And so she will present the content. And then when she finishes her formal presentation, we'll cue you to submit questions and we'll start taking those questions and I'll rejoin you at that point. So I will turn it over to Nelda now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I do have just a few reminders here to make sure that you all are using the Q&A feature towards the end. That helps keeps everything in one area so that it's easier for us to see. And then this link will be available on our website in case you missed something or in case you want to reference it back later to make sure that you're not missing any good information. As she said earlier, my name is Nelda Bailey. I currently serve as the Director of Fraternity and Sorority Programs here at Tulane, and I oversee some of the areas of our office, such as the oversight. I do some of our housing components and community-wide initiatives. I serve as the advisor to our MPHG community, and I also do some crisis management as it relates to our full community. With my staff, I do have two assistant directors, one named Neil Bourgeois, who serves as the IFC advisor, and he does all of our harm reduction and health and wellness initiatives to make sure that we're having a safe community. He also manages our social events and our sexual violence components for our community. Rebecca Reed is my second assistant director. She serves as the Panhellenic advisor, and she oversees everything leadership in our office. So how are we helping develop our emerging leaders, giving resources to our current chapter officers, and providing relations for our Greek ambassadors who serves as peer-to-peer ambassadors for our community. Lastly, I have one of our graduate assistants whose name is Scott Kleinfelter, and he helps support some of our other components and work closely with Neil on our social event registration policy. Stay connected is one of the things I always encourage families to do. If you have a question, please feel free to reach out to myself in case you're not sure if Penny may have the answer. Our website, Greek.Tulane, is the #1 place that I always tell people to go to. But our email, our social media, as well as our telephone number is on this slide if something does pop up and you want to reach out. The next thing that we have here is called The Current, and this is a 53-page guide where its full job is to help you understand what our community is. So even if you miss everything that I talk about in this PowerPoint, most of that information will be in here. You'll see some things like our community at a glance, each one of our values and how our community uplifts those values in our everyday work. You can see some of the components that we have done for impact. So how much money have we raised? Where did that money go? What are some of our partnerships in the area and globally? You'll get to learn about each of our councils and their recruitment methods. Then you also get to go through a little bit more of frequently asked questions that we know sometimes people have related to our families, related to our processes for joining, related to financial obligations. And then we also have some Greek terms. So if I am saying a term that doesn't make sense, that term can be easily defined for you. Membership expectations, and then each one of our chapters all have a page. So this document is an easy document that's accessible on our website that can help you get some of that information. These are some common terms that I do want to cover, not into full detail, but I may mention this throughout the presentation. One of that would be bid or bid day. So a bid for our community is an invitation to join, and bid day is the day that you receive that invitation. We also say things like new member or P&M. So a new member is a member who is going through the new member education process post receiving a bid for an organization. And a P&M, or a potential new member, is currently where your student may lie. That is a student that has interest in joining our community, but they have not received a bid for one of our chapters. The other thing that you may hear a lot is initiation or initiate. And that is the process of going through our ritual to become a full-fledged member of our community. And that ends the new member education process and begin the membership component and experience. So here are our values and our mission for our office, which the mission of the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Programs is to enrich the capacities of the members of our community through opportunities and experiences that develop and maintain the values of friendship, leadership, scholarship, service, and social responsibility. Our friendship is one of our easiest components when you think about Greek life, and this is the idea of meeting lifelong friendships. I tell students all the time that most times the people that you join with or the people in your chapter are going to be some of your favorite people to reconnect with. I joined my organization way back in 2010, but I literally just came back from a Disney trip with two of my sorority sisters where we went to explore what Disney had to offer. That's our connection, our friendship, our brotherhood or sisterhood, as some people may relate it as. And that's staying true past your undergrad experience and helping you build networks past just who you may have as a roommate. Our next value is leadership. So we have a whole dedicated staff person whose job is to help members feel prepared for the world after graduation. Whether that's having interview skills, whether that's learning what their strengths are, or helping them in their current role as a chapter officer feel prepared to lead their peers, or some of the things that we like to do to make sure that our students can give back. This photo here is a photo of our Greek ambassadors, and this is a group of students who go out and do some of the broadcasting and networking for our community to make sure that PNMs know what they're joining and their questions are being asked. And they receive quite a bit of leadership training to make sure they feel prepared to do that. We also have scholarships. So I always put on here how currently the OFSP or the affiliated GPA is always higher to that of the Tulane GPA. And that's for a couple of different reasons. We do have a status where we require you all to have a certain GPA to join our community. And we also have different components put in places through our chapters to help people maintain that. Whether that's study groups, mentoring, connecting you to people in your major, or helping you recognize your academic achievement with special kudos either at a chapter meeting or with something like a cookie to help you feel encouraged for your academics. My favorite one is always service and philanthropy. So, how are we giving back? Our members are encouraged to give back to the great city of New Orleans that we currently live in, but also some of our causes are international or national. So, how are we helping to make sure that other people's experiences are really, really helpful in the way that we can? Here we listed a few, but in the current, there is two full columns of the things that our community does, whether that's physical service, whether that's actually giving out collections of products or funds, and making sure that your members are getting connected in those experiences. And our last value is social responsibility. So, how are we making sure that the decisions and the impact that our community has on society is that of a positive influence that we will want to have coming forward? A lot of this speaks back to our social events, but some of this also helps them in understanding who they are as an individual and how they show up in places to make sure that impact is what they want that to be. Eligibility requirements are usually one of the first things that I get from family members and PNMs of what all do I need to have. So I will cover all that for you all. The first one is to be a full-time degree seeking Tulane student. So that means that they have to be registered for at least 12 credit hours to be a full-time degree seeking student the semester that they're looking to join. They also have to have earned at least 12 minimum hours with a GPA of 2.5 the semester prior. Now, if they're a transfer student, they can transfer in those 12 credit hours, but they just can't be a first semester freshman going through this process. We want to make sure that they understand the impact that academics here at Tulane has on them before they join our community that may also add a little bit onto their caseload. So that 12 hours can be transferred, but they have to have that before they join. The only exclusion would be if they are going through the Spring Scholars Program, which we have an entire dedicated partner that we work with for that. Those hours still need to be accredited through the Newcomb Tulane College in order for them to go through the process. That 2.5 GPA is the same either way. The next one is that they have to be in good standing with Tulane University. By that, we mean that they cannot have any disciplinary probation or deferred suspension that may impact them from being able to join any student organization or having any type of honor board probation placed on them for academic misconduct. If they have either of those statuses, they would have received a letter saying that they're ineligible to join, and they won't be able to join our community until after that sanction has been fulfilled. The next one is not found responsible for a drug possession violation within the high priority period. That is something that we immediately put them on that disciplinary probation period. So we want to make sure they are in good standing in order to join our community. The last thing that I would stress right here, because this is a breakout piece, is that they have to attend their council specific introductory session. So each one of my governing councils have their own session. I will talk about that when we get to the council slide, but they have to attend at least one in order to join to make sure they're getting all of the information that they need to make an informed decision. There are no exceptions to this. So that is another thing that sometimes we do get the question of whether or not a 2.4 counts as a 2.5. We cannot give any exceptions for anything listed here, but we can talk about other options for joining our community after those sanctions or those statuses have changed. If they're interested in going through the IFC or the Panhellenic recruitment process, they also have to complete registration by December 1st. And that is also a hard deadline because we have to go through and check all of the other eligibility requirements. So that is also no exception. So here are our councils. The very first one we have is the Interfraternity Council, and this is the council of our 12 social fraternities here at Tulane. I have listed those fraternities here for you all, but they promote interfraternalism through programs such as community-wide philanthropy events. They facilitate different educational and programming workshops for themselves, and they're currently in the process of planning and organizing their annual basketball tournament where they actually raise funds to donate to 2 different philanthropy components to give back to the later area. Here is the IFC Council recruitment breakdown. So a lot of times for this, we say that you can't have 12 credit hours to go through recruitment, but we do have fall events where people can go and talk to people beforehand. So they can get to know the students, get to kind of understand what the organization has to do. All of these fall events are held by the IFC Executive Board, and all 12 chapters are invited to come. That is different than the actual structured recruitment process in the spring. So this is come and go. If they only have 30 minutes, they can pop in for those 30 minutes. In the spring, this is our formal recruitment process, which begins on January 19th with our convocation. And the convocation is the IFC mandatory session that they will have to attend in order to be eligible. That is usually about an hour and a half for recovering some information, and it ends with meeting the 12 recruitment chairs. But that part is required. Everything else is going to be based off their schedule and availability. We have an IFC field day, which is a casual opportunity for them to meet all 12 chapters. Last time we had some great food trucks out there, and we're in the process of finalizing some of that. And then we have our chapter open houses after that. That spans over 3 days, and we will have 4 chapters that are open each of those days so that they can get to know them on a more intimate level, meet more of the chapter members instead of just the few that might be at the table, and they get to ask some questions that they may need in order to make their decision. That ends with a prep night on the 24th, where they will probably be invited back to 1 or 2 of their top choices so they can ask a few more in-depth questions before bid day on January 25th. If your student is interested in going through the IFC recruitment process or any of those 12 organizations that were listed, this QR code is the place where they would need to go because they will need to register by December 1st in order to be eligible to go through that process. This QR code will be able to be screenshot and you can grab it that way, but I can also share the link with Penny afterwards so that it can be included in the minutes when that is sent out. Our next governing council is our NPHC, or our National Panhellenic Council, which serves as the coordinating body for our Divide 9, or historically Black Greek letter organizations. We have 4 organizations that are currently active in our council. Those are listed below. Below, and our NPHC just voted to open our community. So we may have a new organization joining us within the next few semesters. The role of the NPHC is to promote higher standards of scholarship, a greater degree of culture, closer social fellowship, and a stronger interpretation of spirit among their affiliate members. For our NPHC community, they have something that is called membership intake, which is a little bit different than recruitment. That process actually refers to how the chapters select, educate, and initiate all of their new members through that process. The important piece to note here is that our NPHC chapters may not have intake every semester. It is not uncommon for them to go a semester or 2 in between so that they can manage some of their other obligations as members of their community. Their intake process looks a little bit similar to this. They may have an event that will kick it off, either called an interest meeting, an informational, or a formal rush. Those are usually processes where it helps them understand how many qualified candidates that they have. They will go over the basics for their community and begin the introduction for what intake entails for that specific organization. Then the organization will have either an interview process or they will make selections on who they like to go forward with the process with. And then that would be our educational lessons. So how do we learn all the great things that these organizations have before they are either inducted or initiated into their new member organization? Lastly, they will have something called a new member presentation. This is formally known as a probate, where we get to celebrate the new members of our community with a nice showcase to help the community understand who the new members are. As far as membership intake, the required component is called Meet the Greets. We have had 2 already for the fall semester, but no worries. If your student did not attend, they can still come to the February 5th date to get all of that great information. The number one thing that I would tell you for this council is to make sure that you're following their Instagram account, because our chapters do host programs throughout the week so that members can get to know the candidates or the PNMs who are interested in joining, and they get to learn more about the organization program. Chapters do consider attendance at these events in their selection of their new members, so it's very helpful for them to go. Our last council that we have is our Palinate Council, which is the unifying, governing, and coordinating body of the NPC organizations. Here at Tulane, we have 9 of those organizations, and they are listed below. And they act as a link between the sororities, the organizations, and administrations by providing a lot of components, educational and enriching, to help its members. Palinate Council has something that is called primary recruitment, and that will be kicked off in January. But there is also something called COB, or continuous open bidding, and that process is year-round. So we will kick it off with what primary recruitment is, and that is a 4-round mutual selection process that takes place in the spring semester because we are a deferred recruitment campus. That starts with a kickoff, which is going to be on January 6th. This is the only council that we have that does require for your students to move in early before classes begin to go through this process. Everybody else will be after the first day of classes. Kickoff is the required component, and that will start in that evening after they've had a chance to meet with their recruitment counselor. And we will go through what recruitment is, as well as some educational pieces that we think that they need. From that, they will go into open house. Open house for our community is split over 2 days. So that will be on both Tuesday and Wednesday. And during that round, they get to meet all 9 chapters. I will tell you though, open house is our smallest round and our quickest round. So it is pretty lightning fast, but they get to meet all 9. The rest of the process gets to build that time out so that they have more in-depth conversations. The philanthropy institute round are rounds dedicated to just that. What are their philanthropies and how are they able to help that? And then what does this trip mean to that chapter? The most important night is probably going to be preference round, which is going to be the January 11th. And that round is dedicated to help them make a very enticed decision for their organization. This round normally also has a component of ritual, so they'll feel closer connected to the organization. And then it all ends with bid day on January 12th, where they get to run home to their chapter. Continuous open bidding, or COB, is the informal recruitment process. So everything outside of primary recruitment is going to be considered COB. That happens both the fall and the spring semester, and it starts this Monday after first day of classes. So our first day of classes, the next day, COB will be eligible. We will have a lot of information going out about which chapters are COB eligible. But for right now, primary recruitment is going to be the first start of that process. And then once again, here is a QR code, and I will be happy to share this link. If they are interested, I will say right now, Palinate Recruitment is having a raffle. So for the next couple of weeks, if they are registering, they do get entered into that, where they get to get 1 of 2 prizes. The prizes look really nice, and that is also on their social media. So unrecognized groups, we just covered 25 chapters that are covered by us, but we do have a few organizations that may be what we consider underground or unrecognized. And it's very important that you know that these organizations are not encouraged at all, nor are they affiliated at all with the university. They don't report to us or any national fraternity. So that means that they also don't have any version of adult supervision or guidance in the decisions that they're making. As it relates to risk management, they do not carry any form of insurance because, once again, they're not recognized by the university or a national fraternity, and they don't have supervision to help them understand components. They are prohibited from participating in any of our 25 chapters if they are a member of one of these organizations, and they are likely going to lie about their status if they're telling you about this organization. Right now, most of these organizations have died out, but I still state that just in case this name is mentioned, and that is 828, Deep, Omega Psi Phi, SAMI, or SIG-App. We strongly discourage students from joining one of these fraternities as they are not affiliated with the university. So, time commitment and balance. A lot of times students ask me, what does this look like and what does the first semester entail? The first semester will be probably the more intense semester because that is going to be paired with a new member education process. So during that time, I tell students that they will probably have about 3 to 5 hours required on their new members between attending their first couple of chapter meetings, their new member education workshops, and then a few bonding activities to help to get to know the members of the organizations as they prepare to get a big or a mentor in that chapter. We also have academic commitment. So we completely understand that that is the first priority for all of our organizations. We just encourage that members communicate those expectations to their chapter leaders so that either they won't be assigned a certain role or they can be excused from something that is required. Organizations members are involved in other campus involvement. There's a whole page in the current where we talk about that. So we completely understand that things may balance. But I always tell people what you put into your experience is what you're going to get out. Some people put a lot in, some people put a little in, and that's completely fine. Cost of membership is probably one thing that you're also curious about. So each one of our councils do look a little different depending on the organization. I will also say that this will cover the membership dues. So there may be additional pieces added on too, and that is something that your chapter and your members should work out between themselves. But each of our councils do have a Greek fee, and that will be added onto their banner account, and that goes to our office to help with programming, supporting the community, and other components for our operationals of how do we support our students. IFC ranges between 600 to 1800 per semester. Once again, that is for the chapter due component. MPHC looks about 300 to 500 per year, but their first semester would be between about $1,000 to $2,500. They also have a $15 Greek fee that they will pay per semester. Our Paralympic community is about $650 to $1,000 per semester, but their first semester will look to be about 200 to 400 extra that goes to their national organization. And then every semester they pay about $20 in their Greek fee. The reason that I say that this is pure chapter dues, some of our organizations may have a facility that changes the parameter of how much they'll be paying. And some of our IFC organizations offer a meal plan, which also changes their numbers a little bit. But this is a bare bone organizational component. So hazing is something that I always talk about because I think it's really important for you all to be aware of some of this in case you're getting calls or FaceTimes from your student and you're not sure what's going on. I kind of group them in ways that might be easier for you to spot versus some things that might be harder. But some subtle hazing may be performing tasks or having them do different roles or assignments that do not align with our organization or do not align with our goals. Making new members also earn the right to wear certain things or requiring them to wear certain things would be something that's considered subtle hazing. And then sleep deprivation. So not paying attention to the fact that you're not sleeping well because you're also doing a couple other things on campus. Harassment hazing is something that is easily kind of identified. So any forms of interrogation, personal servitude, lineups, assigning pranks or anything of that nature, that is all forms of harassment. And then there's also some violent pieces. So capturing, kidnapping, requiring them to do paddling or forced consumption. These are different components that may show up in different times. If any of this is showing up, please note that that is against our hazing code. This is not the full code. This is a snippet of it. But I always like to highlight some of the pieces that are considered acts of servitude and or behavior that humiliates, degrades, embarrasses, harasses, or ridicules an individual or otherwise is harmful or potentially harmful to an individual's physical, emotional, or psychological well-being. It's something that we're going to be considering as hazing. So yes, I gave you a small list. That may not have everything included. If something is a risk, by all means, reach out to us so we can do a proper investigation. The other piece that I always highlight is that this is regardless of the intent or lack of intent to cause harm or haze the individual's own willingness to participate. I tell students all the time, when it comes to hazing, there is no consent in that because you're not able to manage the full new member education process. Our Tulane hazing code is based off Louisiana hazing laws. So there are some requirements that Louisiana has for us. And Louisiana does have one of the more strict hazing laws compared to other states. And some of that does require that we have to provide education for any new member and ongoing hazing information and education for our current leaders. Hazing prevention resources, I always like to share these as well. So we do have my website /hazing that has a couple of examples if you're curious. We have the hazingprevention.org, which is an anonymous resource that allows the information to be shared with us. The number one option I always tell people to do is going to be our hazing concerns. I'm sorry, tulane.edu hazing concerns report. If you do a concerns report, there is a tab that says hazing or organizational behavior. You can click that tab and put in as much information as you have so that we can intervene into that scenario. Two other options are the hazing hotlines. So there's one here at Tulane and there is the national one. Both of those are video recorded. So they're not going to be able to, I'm sorry, not video recording. They're audio recording. So we won't be interacting live, but we can collect the information to do an actual investigation. And then that is all the information. I know that we covered quite a bit of information. I am going to allow Penny to come back on so that we can get to any questions that you may have. Feel free to put that in the Q&A chat so that we can get to them.
Yes, thank you, everybody. So now is your time to submit questions, and we'll go through as many as we can. Nelda covered all that information really swiftly, so we've got some time here for questions. So if you'll submit those, we'll go through them. So the first question, Nelda, is can some of the 12 credit hours be pass-fail? For example, a community service class. So how do pass-fail credit units get calculated into everything?
It will be dependent on how Newcomb receives them. So we don't make the requirement based off that. We pull their transcript. So if it shows at the bottom of their transcript for the credit hours, then it will count. If the Newcomb Tulane does not receive it for the credit hour, then it wouldn't.
Okay, so follow up with another question, or if a person wanted to kind of sort that out now and find out how it would be credited, would you say that the student should talk to an academic advisor, or what would you recommend?
Yes, the easiest way to sort that out right now is to have them walk in and meet with one of their advisors, either their first year experience advisor or their major advisor, to have a direct conversation specifically about that course.
Okay. So here's a question that's more about the costs. What
Okay.
are the different types of costs in order to get an idea of those kinds of fees?
Yeah. So the first cost is the estimate that I gave you, and that is the chapter membership fee. So all of our chapters will have that, and that mostly goes to our national organizations to stay in compliance with our national organization. The second fee that all of our organizations will have is the Greek fee. So that is set by our community. That is what is helpful for helping us do operations. We have a leadership component that is coming up. I have an EDI speaker that is coming later this month. So that's kind of where that fee goes to, back to helping our student leaders uplift those 5 values that we shared. So those two will be the standard across all 25 organizations. The next fee will be a little bit different based on your student's experience. So if they have a facility, they may be required to pay dues to the facility, either covering the house mortgage or helping cover some of the expenses for the house. That fee will be added on to those two amounts that we just mentioned. Some of our IFC fraternities do have a meal plan. So out of our chapters, I think about 5 of them have a meal plan. So that would be an additional fee added on where they can eat at the house if they're not on campus and don't want to grab anything at campus. So that would be an additional fee. And then there's the kind of what I call the lanyard fee. The lanyard fee would be the social events. How do you help give back to t-shirts or formals? Those things that are added on that is a requirement, but not necessarily a full requirement. You get to choose what that fee looks like.
How do members of the NPHC distribute their information announcing Rush?
Yes. So the number one thing that I always tell people to do is to make sure that you're following their social media. Their social media will let you know when they're having programs available, and they will let you know when something is coming up. When it comes to former Rush, some of our organizations nationally are not allowed to repost that on social media. So those organizations will post on WaveSync or they will post flyers around campus and some of our key components, such as our administrative building, which is Gibson, some of our academic buildings, and some of the residence halls.
And now to explain to the parents, WaveSync is a platform that all the students have access to through using their, Tulane credentials. And so it's both sort of a directory of student organizations where they can look for specific ones and see who their leaders are, sign up on email lists, but it's also an events calendar. And so they can scroll through that and look for events and they'll see activities, but they can also sort them according to the type of activity or just by the day or the week or a date range or something, or they can search on a particular organization's name to find the events that are listed there. And so then some of those events will have a place where they can register or sort of RSVP that they want to attend. And it gives them all, the time, date, information, location, and, descriptions of the events. So,
And for any event on campus, it has to be submitted through WaveSync.
and Nelda, are those social media handles for those different organizations also on the main Office of Fraternity and Sorority Programs website? So if the parent wants to direct their student to find that information, would they find all those handles on your website too?
Yes. So if you go to our website at greek.tulane.edu, you will see our community and then the NPHC will be listed there. Each of our chapters will have their social media there. If you send them to our Greek.Tulane on Instagram, we also have all of our chapters there too. So that's two easy ways to find it. And then for this PowerPoint, it is on their slide as well. So when you go back through a couple of slides, you will see that we put those handles right there.
And you said each of the organizations has a page in your guide. So I would imagine that that contact information is on their page, on their guide too.
It surely
Right.
is.
Okay. So, so this next question is, will residence halls be open early for the women who are participating in Rush? If so, when? So if you could explain a little bit more about that.
Yes. So the way that this process will work, we actually have registration closed on December 1st so that we can begin some of our early eligibility checks. They will receive an email letting them know if they're eligible based on what we have right after finals, right after we have grades for this semester. That information is shared with our housing partners, and then the housing will send an updated move-in letter letting them know that their move-in date has been changed based off our request for them to be here early. That will be on January 6th is what that current schedule is. That is on our website, on our Panhellenic page. It is also in the Greek guide. And then if your student is curious, our Paladin community has a full recruitment guide that they just released, and that information is also there as well. So they wouldn't need to do a request with housing. We will manage all of that after we have done their eligibility check.
And I will add that we always recommend to families not to book any non-refundable, non-changeable flight arrangements until after your student has gotten their confirmation about whether they're approved to go through that process and their information has been given to housing. Would you want to say anything more about that, Nelda?
Yeah, that's it.
And so can you give them an estimate of when they would find out if they're eligible to do all that, when they'll receive information?
Yes, I have the exact date on our website, but my memory is failing me. We do the poll, I think it's like 5 days after finals is done, because there's a window where they can submit a request to change or alter their grade. We do the preliminary check based off that. So as long as they don't have any flags from there, they will get their email from housing before we break for winter holiday. If there is something where they're like at 11 hours or they have a grade that is not submitted, their final check, I believe, is January 4th, but the actual date is on the website. I feel like it's the 4th because we get back from winter holiday and then we had a day for academic affairs to make that change.
And I want to just clarify because you said when we break, but out the staff members' winter recess for when we are off for the holiday and the break between semesters is different from when the students might go home after finals. So that's going to be closer to, it's really like the third week or so of December. It'll,
Yeah.
so I
I think
think,
it's like the week of December 19th or 20th is our last day.
okay, so we'll put that in the follow-up message as well, just to be careful about that because we don't want you to book non-refundable flight tickets or non-changeable tickets based on an assumption until everything. Now, if you can book something and change it, manage that how you will, but we can't make any flight changes for you. So we want you to be careful about how you manage the travel part. So, and so the next question is Zeta Psi a recognized fraternity at Tulane?
Yes, they besides one of our recognized fraternities, they also have a house on Broadway. So they are one of our fraternities that may have a little bit more than that range to help with their fraternity facility fee.
So can first year student girls who want to go through sorority recruitment, um, if things kick off Monday, January 6th, can the students get into the residence hall on January 5th? So this is all included, so if they're approved to go through the recruitment process, then Nelda's office sends that information to housing. Housing will give them approval to move back in. And so they would return on the 5th, correct? On
No,
the
they
5th.
return on the
They come
6th. So
on the
we are
5th.
actually not able to get them in on the 5th. Housing has to do their inspections from the winter break to make sure there was nothing that happened while
Right.
we were away. And they also need to make sure that all of their staff is back. So we can't get them here on the 5th. The earliest we can get them is on the 6th,
Right.
but they tap right back in and they can get early access as early as 9 a.m.
And then their formal events that they would have with you don't start until about the evening.
It's in the late evening, yeah.
So, okay, so keep that in mind. If they're approved and eligible, the residence halls would open for them 9 a.m. and then they have that whole day to get settled in or for different flights to arrive at different times. And the first thing that they have to do for the recruitment process is, did you say 6?
It's in the evening, it's at
In the
kickoff.
evening. Okay. So, can you speak about the dress code for certain rounds?
Yes. So
Sorority.
we do have some of that information in the current. So if you go through the Greek guide, there are photos with the examples, and we also say what each round energy is. The students now are saying more like vibe. So it's not professional or business professional. It's, oh, if you're going to brunch with your family members, what will you wear for this day? In the current, that picture shows you exactly a good example of it. And then it also has shoes. So how do you be mindful of what shoes you want to wear? There is one day during the process when we give them a t-shirt, so they just have to find a bottom that still shows their energy. But also in the Panhellenics recruitment guide, that information is shared as well. So each outfit idea, later on this semester, Panhellenic is going to share a lookbook closer to the registration close date, which is just a Pinterest board of outfit ideas.
Okay. So, one parent has said that their son said that organizations are already offering bids. Is he at a disadvantage if he hasn't been invited to parties so far, via text message?
So that's our fall event. So during our fall events, people can talk to organizations. As far as official bid, the answer is no, but they can have a conversation saying that they're really excited. We would like for you to come back. Those fall events are completely open and all 12 of our organizations are there. So we do highly encourage that they come out to get to know the members a little bit better. We do have a few more left over this semester. He's not at a disadvantage. He can completely start in January and have an idea of the organization he would want to join. But he can also come to the fall events. It is not abnormal for some of our students to start building those relationships this semester. Specifically for our IFC community is where I would say that. Our Pelham community can be completely different. That's why the fall events in the fall is more of how do you help clarify questions for recruitment. For IFC, he can start having those conversations now.
So, can you tell us what percentage of undergraduate students at Tulane are involved in the Greek system?
Yes, we have a little over 3,300 students. That information is shared in there. I think we were at 3,278 last semester, which is about 28% of the undergraduate population.
The next question is, are letters of recommendations for the sororities allowed or required?
So for our NPHC sororities, the answer is yes, and they will tell you what those requirements are for their letters of recommendations. For our Panhellenic sororities, it is LINEAP. So it is not required, and we do not collect them in our office. But if you have a letter and you would like to share that letter, they can do it. That information will be submitted through our national website because our chapters don't collect that locally, but it is not required. And commonly, we have less than about 100 students who submit them now.
And that's something that might have been required when the parents of our current students were going through the process, but it's not so much of a requirement anymore. So I think that there's kind of that's something that's evolved over time. So, and I will just say that in case we have any parents and family members who haven't learned this word yet that we throw around a lot here, lanyap means like a little something extra. So, so yeah, those things might be, something extra, but not required. So I think that's important to kind of understand how that's different from how it may have been years ago. So another parent asked if there are scholarships available for Greek organization fees.
Yeah, so there are no scholarships for the first entry, so like for our recruitment registration or any of those components. But each of our chapters, we do talk about this during our kickoff and our invocation or our Meet the Greeks. We do talk about what financial transparency is. We get into a little bit more detail of what those fees may look like for their specific organizations. And we also cover our scholarships. So our councils do offer hardship scholarships that people can apply for. Our Panhellenic chapter did 10 this semester. Our IFC did 8. Our NPHC did 1. We also have some within the chapters where the chapters can have it where members apply. So each organization does a little different. That is definitely a question that I encourage people to ask during the recruitment process, but our office do cover a little bit through our councils as well.
Let's see. So is there a limited number of spaces available for sororities? Do each of the 9 organizations have the same number of members?
That's a layered question. Let me say it that way. So what we do have is something called total. And total is the cap that they can offer a bid for during the primary recruitment process. I'm so sorry. Total is their chapter size. So their chapter sizes look a little different. Quota is the number that they can cap at during primary recruitment. So everybody will have the same number for quota, but it may look a little bit different for total because we base it off the pool. So we won't actually know those numbers until everybody gets back, and we won't know that number until everybody finishes the recruitment process. So yes, one person may have the same number for this area, but that number may looks a little different. It is not to cap or limit. It's just based off the pool that we're dealing with at that time when we set it.
And you mean the pool of potential new members, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So one person said they're still a bit confused about the councils and which organizations fall into which councils. So they have a daughter who's interested in joining a sorority. And so that would mean that they're asking for clarification. Does that mean the January 6th timeline and the January 12th bid day? And yes, if this wasn't clear before, they are finished with this. If they're going through that recruitment process, then it's finished before classes begin. And so
Wait, hold on, let me backtrack because I think that the core of that question is a little bit different.
Okay.
So we have 3 different governing councils. The difference in the governing councils is how they choose to outlive our values. So we have the Panhellenic Council that has 9 sororities in it. That is AD Pi, AE Phi, Chi O, Tri Delta, our Kappas, Theta, Chi Phi, Phi Mu, SET. I think I covered them all 9. So they are 9 sorority organizations that uplift the values of womanhood and feminism for our community. And then we have our NPHC community, and that has 3 sororities. So that is our AKAs, our Deltas, and our Zetas. Those are the same exact council, so like how they operate. The difference is that our NPHC adds on the Black cultural experience because they are historically Black councils. Those 2 experiences look different for what your student wants to join. So if she wants to join Panhellenic, which is one of those 9 sororities, then yes, she will follow that January 6th start of recruitment. If she's interested in one of our NPHC or our Black Greek letter organizations, she would need to go to Meet the Greeks on February 5th. Those are 2 different councils who have 2 different processes to join.
And so somebody going through NPC would not come back early.
The only ones who come back early is Palanix. So
Right.
they're going through IFC or MPHC. They will not come back
Right.
early.
Because the other process is later in the spring semester.
Yes.
Okay. Um, let's see here. Another question is, are there opportunities for career mentoring through the alumni network of the organizations?
Yeah, that is something that we do celebrate quite a bit. Our Paladin community just recently had a networking event with our Greater New Orleans alumni chapter. So they were actually able to meet nurses and lawyers and people that were in the community that they want to join. We are currently planning another opportunity for that in the spring. Our MPHC chapters do have something that's called an alumni council, and they did the same thing recently where they brought in alumni to help them prepare for their GREs, GMATs, and LSATs. So we do have different workshops that the chapters do based on what they think that their needs are for their community. But our goal is to make sure they know that the lifelong membership that we talk about or the lifelong friendship, that extends to our alumni as well.
The one comment or questions that this parent's son has heard about some drinking games, particularly something called a race against the members. So if you could just speak to those kinds of activities and what you would recommend families do.
I would recommend that you complete a tulane.edu/concerns report. Any form of alcohol related to new member education at all. So any recruitment or new member education is hazing, and that is against our national policies as well as our university policies. They should not be doing any of that willingly or unwillingly because it is against our policies, and that is a form of hazing. So I highly recommend if you want to send something to me directly, you can, but we would need to get that started so we can begin an investigation.
And I'll just mention, because some parents have heard about our concerns report in other contexts, because we might have discussed it in terms of emergencies on campus or mental health issues or academic concerns. So just to kind of clarify for everybody, it's a sort of multi-purpose report form, and then it has a drop-down list where you can specify the type of concern. And then there is a text box where you can give a narrative with more detail. And so just know that you might have heard us talk about the concerns report in different webinars. And so it's the same report that can be used in different ways. And so it just helps us by giving you one place to, log a concern, and then you can specify and you can give more detail. And then those are reviewed by our staff members, and they are then sorted, sent to the appropriate group to investigate further. So you can submit those anonymously. Sometimes that we're limited in what we could do if there's not enough information to go on. But you can, and anybody in our community, a student, a current student, a family member, somebody else from the community, professors can submit them. And so, staff members. So we just want you to know that's kind of your one place where you can submit those concerns. Let's see. Next question is, um, how many meals can a new student have or a sorority member have at their sorority house once they're members? So this is going to vary. So if you can speak to that.
Like, is it capped or limited? Can you say the question again?
The question, how many meals can a sorority member have at their sorority house once they are members? How many meals?
Okay, so for our sororities, none of our 9 sororities who have a facility on campus have a meal plan. Some of them may offer meals as a part of a program. So most recently, I did a presentation for our Pi Phi chapter, and they had dinner at their chapter meeting, but they don't have a meal plan. Only some of our IFC chapters have a meal plan. So the answer would be depend on what kind of program is happening. It's not like they're capped. If you're looking for our IFC community, that is in correlation with our components or our colleagues at dining. So they're able to have a resource so that they can plan based off where they are on campus.
Can you give a little bit more detail about that? So if they're in a fraternity, part of
Yes.
IFC,
Mhm.
then some of those groups have a meal component.
Yes. So if they are, let's say they're at the LVC and they're already studying, or they're at the B school and they came over here, they will have a part of their dining plan that allows them to be here on campus. But if they're walking from the library and they just want to pop into the fraternity house, they can also get it there. It really depends on their setup. The breakdown is outlined by dining and it is on their website. But it's not like if they go to the fraternity house, they'll get turned away.
Right. Um, let's see. And so, and some of these questions might be coming from people who themselves participated at an institute, a university or college where it was set up differently, or they might have a student at another school where meals are always included, or it's just managed differently. So this question is, how do housing and the meal plan work, considering students live in campus housing for 3 years? Is it one or the other option? So maybe giving a little bit more context or detail about the number of students who might actually live in fraternity and sorority houses that are Tulane fraternity and sorority houses.
Wait, do you want to know about dining or you know about living? Because those are two
Well,
different
they
questions.
they in this question they ask both. How do housing and meal plan work, considering students are on, must live in housing for 3 years?
Okay, so for the housing piece, their first year, they would still be required to live on campus. None of that changes at all. What we do allow is that if they are a second year officer for their chapter, or if they are a third year junior, they will file an exemption with housing to live in their fraternity house or their sorority house. So each of our chapters are capped. We have about 78 beds across all of our fraternity sorority houses. So it's not a huge number. If they
Right.
are a sophomore or a second year officer, or they are a third year junior and they want to file that exemption, they will go through my office and I will work with housing to get that process. And then they will be able to live in the fraternity or sorority facility based on that exemption. For our dining component, within their first and second year, they are required to still have a meal plan on campus. What we do after bid day and for IFC in the spring, we share a list of new members to our colleagues at dining, and they are able to switch their meal plan from their current meal plan to something that is called a Greek meal plan, which allows a little bit less on campus to compensate for the fraternity aspect that they can do in their fraternity house. That is all managed through dining. So they will still need to do a form switch or a meal switch through their portal. But we will email them saying that these people would need to do that after the deadline that dining has already set.
Okay. So we've got several more questions. So that some may be repeating things that we already talked about, but we'll get through as many of those as we can in our last 5 minutes here. So so yes, the presentation will be emailed to everyone who's participating on the call. If you registered, you'll get the slides and a link to the video. Another question is there a similar presentation that's offered to students so they have all the same information? So I will just say, Nelda's office has been educating the potential new members in lots of different ways. So we compile all this information and throw it at you, parents and family members, in one quick hour, but they've been able to acquire this information over time and in many different formats, some that they can acquire at will when they want to, and then other things that are formal presentations they have to attend. So with that said, I'll let Nelda just kind of explain that part again.
Yeah, so we've had two opening events that was community wide in the semester already. There is a bunch of information on our social media accounts for the students who are still engaging with social media. And then each of our councils have had programs throughout the semester. My favorite component that we do, our Greek ambassadors every Friday are open in our office for 3 hours for any questions that they may have. And we cover a lot of this information with them.
So this question is sort of outside of your scope, but I know you can speak to this. Does Tulane offer quote unquote professional fraternities associated with specific majors or schools like engineering or business? So if you'll just answer that for us.
Yeah, so we do have some professional organizations that are Greek lettered as well. We have a few service organizations, and then we also have a few honor societies that are all Greek lettered as well. The beautiful thing is that they can join one of those organizations and our organization, and we highly encourage that they do that to help meet their needs that they have for a student. If they're curious, that WaveSync portal that we mentioned earlier, all those organizations will be listed there, and they are managed through what we call the SOC, which is our Student Organization Center, and they are right by our office. So if they have any questions, have them come to the LBC on the garden level, and we can help them find both their Greek-led organization home as well as their professional organization home.
What if your family are members of the Divine Nine, one of those organizations? Does that weigh into the students' potential for joining one of those organizations?
The answer is yes and no. So some of our organizations do have something that is called a legacy policy. So that means that you are a member of an organization that your parent is, or the way that we define it is parent, sibling, or grandparent is how we define our sibling, our legacy policy. So if they are a part of that, their requirement may look a little different if you want to do that. But you also don't have to join the organization that your legacy is a part of. So if you're interested in something else, that does not go against you or that doesn't count against you in your seeking process. The only difference is the legacy member, so the older member, may have a requirement set on them that they would need to fulfill for the PNM to have. That example looks like if your mom is an AKA or you're an AKA and your daughter would like to join our AKA chapter, then that person may need to have been financially active for a period of time before that daughter or that student can apply as a legacy for her. She can also still join the organization and just don't mark it as being a legacy of the organization.
So one parent said that they found the current on your website. Is there a way to download that as a PDF, or can you only kind of view it on the website space itself?
It doesn't allow you to download it, and that's just because of the size of it, but you can always refer back to it.
Okay. Um, let's see. When is the next council meeting for the 9 sororities? How are students made aware of those? So we've discussed that before. You've got information on your website, WaveSync. Is there anything else
Well,
you
council meetings are closed. The council meetings are when they're handling the business and the program. The next upcoming program is going to be Trick or Treat with the Greeks, and that will be next week, and that is on WaveSync.
So have the Panhellenic sororities already hosted events this fall? My daughter was under the impression that those events were just for the women who were doing continuous open bidding. Can you please clarify?
Yes. So there were 2 things that we hosted early in the semester for COB only. So that was COB kickoff and that was COB intro. Those 2 programs were in September, but there are different programs that are happening through the semester. We like alliterations in my office. We're very spirited. So we've had popcorn with Penhel, we've had pizzas with Penhel, we have pastries with Penhel coming up. Those programs are designed for anyone who has a question. So that is manned by our Panhellenic executive board. So the 9 chapters may not be there, but the executive board is designed to help them answer questions. So if they're not sure if their outfit is the right outfit, they can come ask that question. If they're not sure if they answer a question properly or they want to make an edit to their registration, they can do that there. There's no actual fall recruitment programs. Our job is to make sure that they're registering for recruitment because the process will allow them to find their home.
So Nelda, we're right at 7. Do you have like 2 minutes for a couple last questions? If we take a little bit of time. Let's see. Do the chapters have support from local New Orleans alumni?
Yes. So each chapter has something called a chapter alumni advisor. Some of our chapters are a little bit more blessed than others. Some of them may have an alumni advisory board. Some of our chapters are larger chapters. They have a primary advisor, then they may have a recruitment advisor. Each one of the ones who have a house will have something called a house core president or a house core advisor. So their job is to solely work with the house manager, anything related to the facility of the house. Part of my job is to make sure that they are getting the things that they need, both the chapter advisors and the house core, that they're getting our updated policies so that they are informing them in a right decision.
And I do want to just clarify for families out there that the houses are adjacent to the Tulane campus, but they are not Tulane buildings. They're not Tulane properties. So that is
We have one that is Tulane property.
okay. So so just be aware of sort of how those are managed, and the students will find out more about that as well. So let's see. So the last question I think is just a clarification. So let's see here. So those interested in an NPHC sorority, do they have to attend the IFC convocation and the Panhellenic kickoff, or just the NPHC Meet the Greeks activity?
If they are interested in NPHC, they only need to attend the NPHC one. So each council has their own thing. They just need to attend that one. So if they went to the one in the fall already, they are good to go. If they missed the one in the fall, we have one more that is February 5th, and that is going to be required for them to go through any form of membership intake.
And this is the last question. I think just again, a clarification. Does the January 6th kickoff session count as the required information session for students who want to go through that? Or is the required thing something they're doing in fall semester?
No, the January 6th Panhellenic kickoff is the required session for Panhellenic recruitment.
Okay. Okay, well, families, we're going to close now. We appreciate your joining us. If you have any further questions, then you would email greek@tulane.edu if it's about this particular content, this topic. If you have general feedback about the webinar or suggestions for other webinar topics that we could do in the future, then please email my office, which is families@tulane.edu. And again, this content will be emailed to everybody who pre-registered, and it will be posted on the families.tulane.edu website. And I think that Nelda will also have it on her website. And then it'll also be in the next family newsletter. We'll provide the links to it as well. So I just want to thank Nelda for all the work she did compiling all this information for you and also presenting it this evening and answering all your questions. So thank you so much, Nelda. And thank you, family members, for joining us tonight. Do keep in mind that we did provide you with a lot of information, but we want you to be informed, but we want your student to manage this process. And we want them to be informed. We want them to take the initiative to find out, everything they can from all of the different resources that Nelda's office and her staff and the student leaders are providing. And so you can support your student, but we want them to drive that process and take ownership for that, because being involved in a fraternity or sorority is going to mean they have to manage their time and they make a big commitment. And so they need to be responsible for that too. So use this as an opportunity to talk to them about how they'll manage that and how they'll fit that into everything. And then those are the kind of questions that they can ask when they're going through the process, to ask other students how they've managed this and how it fit into their overall goals and their education, and then how they manage their time. And we didn't say this specifically, but Tulane made a very concerted effort and intentional decision to defer our recruitment processes until the spring semester, so that students had that first semester of the fall to get adjusted and get used to everything and kind of have some experience in their university life, managing their academics and their social life and their, all of their different commitments, so that they had that behind them and kind of had that as a foundation before they take on this very different, and what can be for many students, very life-changing and certainly life-enhancing commitment and affiliation. So we want you to know that, that's kind of how the process has been planned and very intentionally created for your students. So thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate your involvement tonight, and we'll close now. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.